Hi everyone, this is a good one. Hi Claire, you mention unconditional love a lot. Yeah, probably. But I still don't know what that is and where boundaries fit in with it. And also, what is the difference between unconditional love and limerence? Okay. So, yes, so unconditional love, boundaries, and limerence. Limerence is a form of trauma bond. So it can tend to happen at the beginning of a relationship, or when it can happen romantically or in friendship, where the mind sort of locks in on that person, and there's obsessive thinking about them, obsessive analysis of what's coming in from them. The whole mood depends on that person's regard or their attention towards us, or compliments, or if there's a sense of rejection, then everything plummets. So limerence is, and it generally tends to come from some form of trauma, and the person with whom this limerence is happening is very likely a projection of figures from the past, that where maybe there's been a sense of abandonment, or there's loss, or there's been someone that we've always tried to get their attention. There was only safety in their good regard. And so now in current life, limerence is a play out of that old trauma. And the suffering in it is fantastic information for this exploration of what's real, of what's going on. So limerence has got nothing to do with the unconditional love, which is at the heart of our being, which is absolute sanity. Limerence is need, fear, shame, insecurity, inaction. So limerence is the play out of separation. It's the play out of conditioning of trauma, the attempt to stabilize the identity, all happening really subconsciously through this other person. And actually really in a society in which limerence is completely encouraged through films, through songs, like so much emphasis on another person completing us, bringing our stability, bringing our salvation. Was like really like we're replicating that trauma. So limerence is separation. It's trauma, conditioning in action. Unconditional love is what we are. Unconditional love, presence, intelligence, peace, aliveness, beingness are synonymous. They're the same thing. So the truth of what I am is life, and life is unconditional love. Very nice to say, very easy to say, but what actually does that even mean? And how does it play out in a relationship? Where do boundaries fit in? Does unconditional love mean letting anything go? And I think this is where it gets really interesting, because the unconditional applies to the love. It doesn't apply to behavior. And I think it's where this unstable identity takes this concept of unconditional love and says, okay, all right, well, that must mean it must mean never speaking up. It must mean accepting anything in a relationship. It must mean having no rules, no agreements, no conditions on anything. It's just allowing whatever to be. But no, that's nonsense. That's total nonsense. And all that is really is a hiding place for the identity to actually avoid any sort of confrontation. No, the unconditional element is applies to the love. So it means that love remains whatever. Love is. There's no changing it. And I think our greatest suffering is when this idea of what we are thinks it's not love, thinks it's disconnected from another person, or it's separated out from, him, her, or them. That's enormous suffering for us, deep suffering, because it's an existence of untruth. And so in our programs, we really encourage that fundamental recognition that even the people we're in the deepest conflict with, maybe people we haven't spoken to for decades, maybe people we're scared of, who may have done physical harm, emotional harm, that what we are is love. For that person, we are love, and that person is no exception. And that's, even though that's so confronting to an identity that is in absolute terror, is in absolute shame, in fear, insecurity, it's a shifting in towards truth. We are love. Any existence, any sort of lived experience of anything other than that is a deep suffering within us, a deep confusion within us. We are love. And in the form of the world, this body mind, this, in the middle of a family that has to get kids off to school, teeth brushed, the right uniform on, food eaten, or in work where projects need to get done, and people need to be disciplined, agreements and policies have to be upheld. There's all sorts of boundaries going on. There's all sorts of ways that of what looks deeply true to us. Say we take, I think my children need to brush their teeth before they go to school. That's a boundary. That's a conditioning within me that I can own. It's not a universal law. Of course it's not. There's plenty of cultures where that's not happening. Nevertheless, it looks true to me. And that boundary can be put in place within this family here. It has got nothing to do with love, really, whether that gets fulfilled or not. That's not a condition on the love, is it? It's a condition on behavior. It's very different. It's really different. And I think what this now is doing is creating such sanity within the system, because the love cannot change. It doesn't change. That's the makeup of this whole body mind. And then there's ways of being in the world that involve agreements and boundaries and yeses and nos that are part of interacting. And the more sane the mind seems to me, the more it's settled into love as true nature, and the more these boundaries, these rules that we have of how people relate to us are open for exploration, because this is really the end of just beliefs being handed down blindly, isn't it? It's now every rule that we have is like a sort of challenge to our own consistency and integrity. Do I brush my teeth every day before school? Every rule that we have is that how deep does that rule go? How true is it? How right is it? How valid is it still? And so there's this open exploration of conditioning, really, and a consciousness in the conditioning that we inflict on others, really, that need to behave in certain ways to interact with us, to have certain forms of different relationships with us. It's really interesting, isn't it? So love, fundamentally what we are. Boundaries are become increasingly sane, increasingly conscious and questioned, owned and upheld when they pass all of those tests of validity. And limerence, a play out of trauma. Yeah. Thank you. Lots of love. Bye.